Hiya, my name's Lev. I'm the vocalist in a thrash metal slash hardcore crossover group by the name of Hardstare. I'm also the vocalist in a similar band by the name of Kingpin. Cheers!
Zein esan nahi daukazuentzat zuen EParen azalak?
Well, to answer that question about the cover of our EP, I actually take you back to why the band's called Hardstare in the first place. The band was sort of put together during the pandemic. Just a bunch of people from different bands coming together to kind of keep themselves busy while the other bands were sort of frozen and not really wanting to work so much during the pandemic. So we all kind of came together to start this side project just for a bit of fun, really. And in the group chat, we had all talked quite a lot how the character Paddington Bear is quite a nice wee guy, basically. He's a bear who immigrated from Peru to the UK, and he's a lovely bear, but when he gets mad, he gives you a hard stare, and we just thought that was a good name for a band. So it's not necessarily a Paddington Bear themed band. You know, the lyrics aren't about Paddington, but we always keep Paddington close to our heart because he's a lovely wee bear. And when it came to the artwork, the label that we were working with, Nuclear Family Records, for my money, one of the best labels in the game today, they said, you know, what do you want for your artwork? We're going to get a tattoo artist down in Wales to design a cover for you. And we were just like, can you just draw us a big sick bear? Like just like a big vicious looking, like robotic maybe kind of bear, like a big monster type bear. And what the artist came up with was this. I don't think he did a pretty good job. I think it's pretty cool. So when I look at the artwork and I see a big mad bear, I kind of remember, oh, that's right, we're called Hardstare because of Paddington Bear.
Zer harreman daukazue Power Rangerrekin?
The relationship that I have with the Power Rangers is that when I was a kid, it was my favourite thing in the whole wide world, and I still enjoy it to this day, to be honest with you. You know, gnarly looking villains, big monsters, giant robots. I love all that shit. Power Rangers was all that stuff chucked into one. So when I was a kid, Power Rangers opened my eyes to a lot of like cool shit, like fucking giant monsters fighting robots and all that. I'm mad for that shit. So when again the label asked us, Nuclear Family Records said, "What do you want for the alternate art? You know, for the limited edition version of the tape?" They always, you know, rip like a movie or rip a video game or rip something that exists for the alternate art. And we were like, give us Power Rangers, you know, let's have some Power Rangers art. So they did this Power Rangers the movie rip for the alternate cover for the tape. And again, I think great job. That's Josh from Nuclear Family Records who did that himself. Actually, never got another artist to do it. So that's what Power Rangers means to me. Power Rangers to me means fucking robots fighting monsters, just cool shit.
Noiz hasi zineten musikan?
Me personally, I started in music when I was a teenager, playing in some pretty bad nu metal and hardcore bands, just kind of finding my feet. Everybody in the band has had their own different path. Actually, one of the first bands I was in, a terrible nu metal band, I was in with George, the drummer for Hardstare, so we kind of started together. But as far as Hardstare itself, Hardstare started during the pandemic. Again, just all these people sort of, you know, who were just looking for something fun to keep ourselves occupied while our main bands couldn't really do much else due to lockdowns. So we just took all these sort of leftover riffs that we had and chucked them together and started writing songs for Hardstare. So Hardstare started as a band about a year ago, I guess, like just over a year ago, like properly, you know, in terms of actually getting the music recorded and released. Probably been about for about a year now, but the various members of the band have been involved in music, where some of us have been involved in the local scene for over 20 years now.
Zein estilo nazten dituzue zuen musikan?
It's pretty straightforward, I guess, thrash and hardcore that we mix together. But, you know, so it's crossover we do, but it's not like, there's a lot of crossover bands just now in the wake of Power Trip who sound just like Power Trip. And I fucking love Power Trip. The whole band loves Power Trip. My old band Kingpin played a lot of shows with Power Trip and got to become friends with them. You know, rest in peace, Riley Gale forever. But I don't think that we follow that blueprint for crossover that a lot of other bands do. I think we mix thrash and hardcore in our own way, and it's a bit more kind of we don't give a fuck, anything goes. It's just we're not trying to do anything. To be honest with you, that's the whole point of it. Is it's just a bunch of people throwing in ideas that we like, and it doesn't have to be thrash or hardcore, but it mostly is because that's what we like. But it can be anything. It's just about making genuine music. It's just about just sort of the first idea that all of us have. We just sort of chuck out and we go, right, okay, does everybody like that? Does anybody hate it? No? Okay, let's use it then. And the end result is, a lot of people tried really hard to sound like something in particular. We are not trying at all. We are just, it's just music straight for the heart. It's just music. It's just whatever comes out, comes out. Maybe people will think it's terrible, but we're not trying to appeal to anybody in particular. We're just putting stuff that we like down on record, and it's just authentic music. So it's mostly thrash and hardcore punk, but there's elements. There's the riff for Spirit Radio by Rush in one of our songs because we thought it'd be fun. There's a wee bit of sort of blast beaty type stuff because George comes from a grindcore background drum wise. We just chuck everything in. If we feel like putting something, there's not really any limits. It's just whatever we feel like chucking in, but it is mostly thrash and hardcore.
Eskozia mesedegarria da zuena moduko taldeentzako?
It's actually, it's like a double-edged knife because Scotland right now is great for underground heavy music. There's a lot of great death metal bands like Coffin Mulch, Party Cannon, Rancid Cadaver, Brain Bath, a lot of great thrash bands like Disposable, Fatal Collision. There's lots of other stuff going on, hardcore like Divide, like all the Northern Unrest bands like Nothing But Enemies and Hellbound, Despise. There's loads of great bands coming out of Scotland just now, even out with Glasgow and Edinburgh. There's a new band called Gangs, there's a new band called Truth Ruiner, there's loads of great music coming out of Scotland just now. Scotland is a great place to be around good music. There's so many good bands coming out of Scotland just now, but the difficult thing is playing outside of Scotland, or specifically playing outside of Glasgow and Edinburgh. Glasgow and Edinburgh are the two main hubs for heavy music and for music, live music in general just now. So you find if you're in Scotland that you generally play Glasgow or Edinburgh quite a lot, but there's not really anywhere else to play. And if you want to play outside of Scotland, you kind of need to drive like 4 hours to get to Leeds or Manchester, and then to get to England to play other places. So a lot of bands in Scotland end up playing Glasgow and Glasgow and Edinburgh are like less than an hour apart. So you wouldn't want to play both too often either, because people go to shows in both. It's basically one scene. So as much as there's great music in Scotland, a lot of bands tend not to get out of Scotland too much, and that sort of stifles those bands. Unfortunately, it's there's so many good bands in Scotland that just never really leave Scotland. Unfortunately, because it's just difficult. You need to drive, like I say, 4 hours just to get to the next place, which is in England. So you can't really just go in for a weekender and play a whole bunch of shows and then come back, because you kind of need a day for travelling back and forth. So it's a great place for music. It's a great place to get to know other musicians and hear good music, but to get your name out there, it can be quite difficult. Although there are a lot of people just now, since the pandemic has ended, the lockdowns have ended, there's been a real upshot in shows in places like Dundee, Inverness, Aberdeen, like other places in Scotland. People are really trying to establish some scenes there and doing great things. That they're particularly JCHC Zine in Dundee. We Make That Take Records. They're putting on a lot of shows in Dundee, so that's making that a viable area to go play now if bands in Scotland want to go play Dundee. And I know that folk are putting on a lot of shows in Inverness, like I said, and other places are starting to. I think there's a hunger for live music in more cities now, so there is more live music in those cities, so you can travel to those other places in Scotland and play shows now, rather than just playing Glasgow and Edinburgh all the time. So that's interesting to see.
Pandemia zuen kantutan isladatuta dago?
the pandemic definitely is reflected in some of our songs because, as I said, the band formed during the pandemic, during lockdown specifically. That's when I was writing these lyrics, and it was really hard to think about much else a lot of the time. I don't think there's any song that's specifically all about the pandemic, but there's a lot of feelings that were coming out because of the pandemic, because of the lockdowns, that are definitely reflected in the lyrics at least. There's the song "Break the Chains." I think the first lyrics in that are, "There is a world going out. There is a world going on outside, with or without you," and that was written because I felt like I continued to work from home during the pandemic, during lockdowns, and I felt like there was so much going on in the world. There was all these protests, the Black Lives Matter stuff and all that, and it felt like the world was moving on, outside my window, but I wasn't allowed to go outside. And all these things were happening during work hours, so I was kind of just stuck in the corner of my room working all day, just reading about stuff that was happening in the outside world, and I felt like a watcher, somebody just observing the planet turning without me a lot of the time, and that's kind of reflected in those lyrics. I really wished that I could go out and take part in the world a bit more, but it was difficult because they're telling us that I couldn't, and all these people were out. A lot of people didn't have to work because of the lockdowns, so they were able to go take part in protests and still do things, and I wasn't. So that's about that. And then the next line in the song is, "And those that you trust to make things right don't have a clue." That's clearly about the British government and how they mishandled the whole lockdown thing right for the start. And to be honest, they actually did correct things a wee bit over the course of the time. I think that the UK wound up being very good for vaccination rollout, but there was a lot of fucking daft decisions made along the way. So 100% for the songs on the first release that we made, there's a good bit of pandemic related content on that.
Zein emozio askatzen dira Harresterren kontzertu batean?
Because the emotions that go into the lyrics are usually, very angry, very frustrated and whatever else, I kind of get that out of my system when I'm writing the lyrics, and when it comes time to play the shows, it's just fun, to be honest. It's just like, I've had enough of being fucking angry, and I've had enough of being pissed off. Now I'm going to vent that anger, and I'm going to vent that pissed offness, but we're all going to have a good time about it because we've had enough of being fucking miserable, Let's all come together and have a good time. So the live show is just about, energy, good positive energy. That's what we're aiming for. We've not played a lot of shows so far. We've only played, I think, three or four shows so far. The first one was a show that I put on myself with Mortuary Spawn and Pest Control from Leeds, and the second show was with Inhuman Nature from England, great band. All these bands I'm talking about are great. And then the third show was with Enforced from America. These are three fucking fantastic shows, all with amazing bands. And so far we've just tried to keep it fun. Let's try and keep the energy up. Let's smile a bit. Let's come out of this pandemic and just be glad that we can have live music again. So that's part of the Hardstare live energy, I think. And I think the more shows that we play and the more people get to know the music and get involved and sing along and stuff, the more fun it will get.
Euskal Herria ezagutzen duzu? Gustatuko litzaizueke Euskal Herrian zuzenean jotzea?
I actually know the Basque Country. I've never been, but my other band, Kingpin, played with a band from the Basque Country called Mutilated Judge a few years back, and that was a lot of fun. Those were some crazy guys, and I would love to get to know more bands for the Basque Country. So if there are any other bands for the Basque Country who want to come play Scotland, you can get in touch with me and I'll try and sort that out, if your band's good. And I'd love to play the Basque Country. I'd love to play everywhere, to be honest with you. So I'd love to come over and play with bands in the Basque Country and get to know more people in the Basque Country. Sure, why not?
Zer litzateke turron bat zuentzat?
For me personally, a good tour would just be any tour where I don't need to drive the van all the time. Because I'm straight edge, I don't drink, I don't take drugs or whatever. I'm always sober, and I'm also able to drive. I'm actually a really good driver, and I quite enjoy driving to an extent. So whenever Kingpin have gone on tour, my other band, I've just done all the driving all the time, and I don't mind too much. But in Hardstare, George can drive, and I think I don't know if Liam or Billy can drive, but I know George definitely can, and it would be great to either have someone else in the band drive on tour or to hire a driver. Besides the driving thing, just being out with my mates is always fun, to be honest with you. I just like going away with my pals and playing music for other people and meeting other people. So any tour where there's good bands, I really like playing with other good bands. That's my thing. I would play in front of two people if the other bands on the bill were good. I'd rather not. I'd rather it was busy, but I would rather play to a small crowd and get to see. I'm still a fan of music myself. I love music, and I just want to play with other good bands and just have a good time. So as long as everyone's having fun and the bands are good, that's all I give a fuck about. So if I could do that for a few nights in a row, that's a good tour for me. And if I can rest a bit rather than playing a show, not sleeping because everyone's making too much noise all night, and then driving and then playing a show and then not sleeping and then driving, and if I could just get some time not driving and get a wee chance to sleep, that would be cool as well.
Elkarrizketarekin amaitzeko nahi duzuna gaitu dezakezu.
Alright, well thanks for having this interview with me. Thanks for supporting the band. Thanks to anybody who checks us out. Even if one person sees this and that one person goes and listens to us and loves it and then tells their friends to listen to us, and it snowballs. Any publicity is good publicity. So thanks very much for checking us out. Thanks for giving us opportunity to speak about the band and promote the band a bit. Check out Hardstare, check out my other band Kingpin, check out Billy's other band Disposable, check out George's other band Gendo Akari, check out Liam's other band Fatal Collision. Check out all the other amazing Scottish metal and hardcore bands that I've mentioned throughout this interview at various points. Keep supporting international heavy underground music, because the only way that the bands can get out and play to other people in other countries is if it's a network of people and we're all supporting each other. So thank you for being a part of that, and please keep being a part of it. Catch you later.